Hi, good morning, friends, family, and people of the internet. How are you? I hope that you're doing well. I just wanted to jump in with a quick update. I did record me taking like the pregnancy test. Like if I was pregnant, like I would have found out on this test. I was taking them daily for a while just because I wanted to catch it early. Especially with the proof testing that I was doing, because it's kind of showing that I had low progesterone. So, but we'll get into that. So basically, this video is just kind of an update where we're at, what I'm doing differently for the next cycle. I do have that footage of like the pregnancy test. I'm gonna put that in right here. And as you can see, we are not pregnant this cycle, but we did learn a lot, and we are changing some stuff up for the next cycle, which is why I'm updating you guys, and we'll go from there. So this cycle, I track with my app Flow. I took CoQ10, baby aspirin, prenatals, and we did prove progesterone testing along with ovulation sticks and, HCG. So, like I was saying, I was getting like low progesterone testing through the days of Prove, and I am going to be doing Prove again this time, but I'll go into that later, but okay. So like I was saying, the progesterone testing was coming back like faint negatives. So, for the progesterone test, like you want 2 lines is a negative and 1 line is a positive. So I was getting like that faint negative line and was sending it over. The team at Prove is so awesome. You take picture after picture, give them all this information. They'll look at it for you, all this stuff, like super, super helpful. And so I was getting like faint negatives. So I was like, oh man, I must have low progesterone. So then I started panicking a little bit and was like testing every other day, kind of starting at 10 DPO onward of just like testing. And then I was a day late. And so the footage that you saw is from me being a day late and still getting a negative. So I was very confused with all that information that I was getting. And I ended up starting what would be 32 days of my cycle, so 2 days late or 3 days, going into 3 days late for me. So I started talking to my coworker, Natasha, who also is experiencing recurrent miscarriage and just fertility issues in general. And so we were talking about our apps and the history cycle. So I went back, and since my surgery, I've always started my period late. And I think that instead of being on a 29-day cycle, which is what I have been on for almost 2 years now, I think having that surgery kind of changed things up. Definitely changed up the spacing of things now that I don't have a baseball cyst inside me. And I think I'm on a 30-day cycle. And it's really confusing because in July I had 2 periods, and one was triggered by the removal of my cyst. So then we weren't really sure how to move forward from there. So August was a complete wash. And then on August, once I finished on August, that's kind of where we started from cycle day 1, but we weren't trying or anything. I was just tracking from that cycle so that I could try and get back on track. And I think just like that cycle was a little wonky because of the cycle before it and all that other stuff. And so I think we're finally getting on track. And last cycle was 30 days. This cycle is 30 days. So hopefully that like is consistent. But because of that and not really knowing that, now I'm like more consistently on a 30-day cycle. So I am going to be tracking in my app this time as well as in my notebook and just like matching them up. I think it just like helps me to make sure like if I'm journaling it down to match it up to something versus like mentally trying to remember that. So because it was a 30-day cycle, not a 28, 29-day cycle, our whole everything was off. Like my ovulation window off. Even though I was using the strips, I think that I was off by a day or two in like with peak fertility, so that was off, which made my progesterone testing off, which makes sense because the last day of the window that tells you to test, I got a very clear positive. And so I think that the 4 days that I tested were actually, like I should have probably started on the day that I ended. And so obviously it was telling me that I had low progesterone because I wasn't in that implantation window. Or the proper implantation window. And so I'm just going to do it all over again. The one thing that I am adding in is seed cycling. Just in case I do have low progesterone, it is something that I've read about, I've heard about, and a lot of people say like after 90 days of seed testing, like they get a successful implantation. And so, you know, their seeds I already eat. So for those who don't know, seed cycling is where you eat 2 types of seeds for like 14, 15 days of your first like cycle, and then the latter half of your cycle you switch over to 2 different seeds, and they're just a tablespoon, and the seeds are flax seed and pumpkin seed for the first part of your cycle, and then sunflower seed and sesame seed the second half of your cycle. So I will report back on how that's working. It's super easy to do. I just put it in yogurt with some honey and fruit. But that's something I am doing just in case that all of those tests were right. So, yeah, I think the other thing that we're kind of talking about doing too is during that like down phase where you can't really test and implantation should be happening, just lowering my activity level. So that, I mean, I'm already lowering it. I know this is going to sound like a lot, but I'm only doing 3 strength sessions a week and running maximum 4 times a week right now, and doing physical, like hard strenuous, like this weekend I went skinning, like doing that every other weekend and trying to align it so that it doesn't fall in that time period of implantation. I know that sounds really like, it does sound like a lot, but that's dialed back a lot for me. And I'm hoping that will help just with successful implantation. So, those are the 2 new big things, is just dialing it back during that week and seed cycling, where I'm still taking the same vitamins. I'm still going to do Prove, and see, you know, how that goes. I think there's a lot of value in knowing that information. And like for me, like I said, like maybe I did do the testing during the right days and I am low in progesterone. So I'm taking that information with a grain of salt just because, again, my cycle was so wonky last go around. So, but I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts to test it and try and be in the right window. I think that's the most frustrating thing out of the whole thing. Like, I was pretty convinced that like this was going to be the cycle for us, which was my own doing. And I know that that's just going to come with this territory. I forget her name, but she's also another YouTuber, and she said that like there's life after a miscarriage, and then there's life after a miscarriage, and there's no going back from it. And the mentality that you have around it, and just like wanting to test and building up anxiety and hope or hopelessness, and like, you know, you just go back and forth, and it's such a difficult process. And like I'm trying to relax more going into this process. I'm trying to not stress out so much about it. There's other aspects of my life that are also stressful, not just this. And I think that because I can't fix those situations right now, like, I throw my energy into this problem solving situation, and I just need to kind of lay back on it. It's not, like, while we want to get pregnant and grow our family, it's not like our main focus right now and the end all be all kind of thing. And where it's like we want it so bad that, like, we could go to more doctors and get more testing and that kind of stuff. And I think right now we're waiting out the natural process a little bit longer before we find out. In about a week, we'll have been trying for a year. And that's crazy to me as well. To have 2 pregnancies in a year and no children is bonkers. And next month would be, my due date for our first pregnancy. And so I'm also just kind of like nostalgically emotional. The end of the year is also a really big time of reflection for me. And I'm one of those people that does New Year's resolutions and keeps them. And, well, for the most part, I keep them. And I try to be realistic and achievable, and I only set one. But yeah, it's a process, and I know that. I recognize that. But that's kind of where we're at. So it was a no this past cycle. I still got some more information from it. As long as I'm learning, I think that I'm going to survive the process. I think each cycle that I get a negative test, and that's the other thing too, right? Like, it's not like a positive test is going to be the most exciting thing for me. Like, it is going to be better than a negative, but at the same time, like, a whole other flood of emotions and stress and fear come into place. And so, I mean, this is hard enough for anybody, but when you have issues with your body already and just battling, constantly feeling like I'm flip-flopping between being on the side of my body, like we're working together as a team, and feeling like it's working against me. And it's just hard. It's hard. And I don't wish this on anyone. But the community has been great. You guys have been great. You all have been great. Like, it means a lot to us. We've had a lot of support, and that's been the most helpful thing. It really does mean a lot to have people ask just how it's going, and, those who know when we're testing, asking if it's happened or not. And yeah, it feels like there's more people invested in this than just us, and that feels so good. And as always, thanks for liking, sharing, subscribing, all the things. It means a lot to us in our journey. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.